I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another episode of Old on Old. And this week we're going to be looking at the quintessential noir, which is the Maltese Falcon. So, if you're new to the series, what I do every single week is I break down a new classic film, and I talk about the historical context, and I also talk about what I think about it because I'm seeing these movies for the first time. And I've seen the big classics like Casablanca and Citizen Kane, but for a lot of these different type of movies. I mean, some big ones like Superman, like Gone with the Wind, like Maltese Falcon, I haven't seen. So I decided as I'm watching these movies to do a series and talk about what I think about them and see if it holds up from a sort of 2018 viewpoint, but then also understand the historical context and give you sort of a little bit of a lesson of why this movie is a classic and still a classic today. As always, guys, make sure you like the video, comment below, let me know some of your picks. I want to create this great film community. That's why I'm doing these videos. But let's just jump right into it in terms of the historical context of the Maltese Falcon. Now, when I was looking at the movies to do, I'm just sort of getting into the noir genre because I feel like I've exhausted my options of modern day detective stuff. I think there's not too many detective movies nowadays, and I think the neo-noir, sort of modern day noir of today, is something like Nightcrawler. I mean, people call Nightcrawler noir, even though it's very much detached from the noir genre that was in the 40s. So the detective genre in terms of movies has really been bastardized today because a lot of this detective content is being moved to television. I think that it's a bad decision for the most part. I mean, these CSIs, NCIS, I think a lot of these formats don't work for the TV, the television, and the series go on for way too long because of cable wanting them to push the story, and eventually the story just gets thinned out and it ruins the show. I've seen this happen multiple times with so many shows, and it's really ruining this detective genre. I mean, now not all TV is bad. One of my favorite pieces of detective fiction, or fiction of all time, I really love, is the first season of True Detective. That's an incredible show of a story that needed that first season, but it's also a contained story. It started at the beginning, it started at the beginning and finished at the end. It was like a one season's thing. It didn't continue off into the next season. It was almost like a mini series, but it was just with one characters and a certain set of episodes and a start finish and a known beginning. You know, start beginning and a known finish. Sorry, I confused those two. But that's why I love the noir genre. That's why I've started to go back into the noir genre, because it starts with the mystery and it ends with the mystery. So I really gravitate toward these movies because of that. But if you want to know in terms of the first film noir, well, this is kind of it. Well, it is it. I mean, if we want to know where the term film noir comes from, this movie came out in 1941, but it wasn't until 1946 when a French film critic actually sort of coined the term film noir, or film black, or dark film. This is because dark film would be the direct translation. This is because of the recent trend he was noticing in Hollywood movies, where there was this sort of batch of movies where there's the detective who's separated from the cops, or in this case, is a private investigator, so he's completely separate from the cops. The incredible use of black and white photography, and especially the use of shadows, that sort of elevates these dark and mysterious characters. And I think that they got the shadows, of course, from the incredible German expressionism movement of previous, with things like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. And I like these movies because even in the studio system, they were able to get away with these sort of negative endings, sort of downer endings in that sense, which is unique because it wasn't always happy. There were these sort of hard, grizzled, sad, and cynical characters, and I think that's where the crux of really why I love this movie and why I enjoyed it as much as I did, is because of the character of Humphrey Bogart. As I did this, we've covered The Treasure of the Sierra Madre before, and as I'm exploring Humphrey Bogart's filmography, I'm really understanding how incredible of an actor he is. I'm starting to become a really big fan of his, because he was a standout here because he was such a unique character. I mean, if you look at his viewpoint, at the beginning we see his partner die, but he doesn't care. There's no emotional resonance to him. He's not like, oh, I gotta find this man. He's like, yep, it happens. So you're like, oh, that's a weird reaction. So you're instantly intrigued into the story. And then you learn about his code, the code that, even though he didn't really like the guy, he had to avenge it, because he said when a man's partner dies, you have to look into it. I mean, he's a private investigator. He's got this sort of moral code that he has, and he sort of sticks by and follows, which is super interesting, and we want to see him interact. And really what I've learned from film noir, and I think this applies to this movie as well, is almost how to watch it. A lot of these movies the mystery, the story, the plot isn't the focus of it. It's about the character, the main character, and then the way he interacts with the colorful characters of sort of the supporting cast, the many supporting casts. Take a look at something like The Big Lebowski, which is a cult film, but pretty much everyone's seen it. It's an incredible movie. Check it out if you haven't. But that movie, it's totally noir, even though some people don't think it is. It's totally noir. And what do people like about that movie? They like the dude. They like Walter. They like Donnie. They like Jesus, right? They like the incredible funny lines. They don't really understand the story. Like, what happens in The Big Lebowski? Who cares? We just want to spend time with the characters and quote their dialogue and have a fun time. That's the same way with the Maltese Falcon. What's going on with the Maltese Falcon? Does it really matter? Not really, because we want to see this character and understand its character piece of Sam Spade, of Humphrey Bogart, and understand his motivation, and then his interactions with this funny sort of unique cast of characters, the supporting cast, whether it be the sort of mysterious woman or, the competitors and the cops or whatnot, this unique interaction. And another point I love in terms of the correlation between The Big Lebowski and this movie is the dialogue. Where The Big Lebowski is funny, this one's poetic, and sometimes he speaks slow in a poetic sort of staunch or very profound measure. And the other times he speaks in sort of this flustered way where he's talking a mile a minute. Something like the dialogue we've seen in His Girl Friday last week. That I think he's such a unique character that at points can go off the rails, but at other points is so smart and intelligent and always says the right things. Some people always try to go for realistic dialogue and glorify the dialogue, but these movies, they don't have realistic dialogues. They glorify the dialogue. They really want to accentuate the dialogue and make it seem like almost like a wish fulfillment scenario. But now, looking back at it, I think a lot of people could criticize this movie because it's such a quintessential film noir that it's too cliched. Now, I understand this point because when I watched Halloween 1978 for the first time, I'd seen a lot of horror movies before. So when I watched it, I knew a lot of the horror tropes. So I didn't find it very good because I've seen it before. It was predictable. But the difference between that and this is that the horror genre is so fundamentally built around the scares and built around the sort of thrill of scaring you. And if that's sort of predicted and that's sort of taken away, well then it's kind of boring. But with a film noir, even though this one, you look back at it, and should I have maybe seen a bunch of film noir and then seen this one, I would have been like, oh yeah, whatever, so boring, so typical, obvious. But from a historical context, you have to at least understand the basis of it. But also, I think this one holds up better than something like Halloween did. It wasn't my first noir. I've seen other noirs, but I think that this one holds up because it's not like the horror genre that's so essential to the need of thrill. This one has much to do with the character, and if you have one sort of version of a character and when he says something maybe different than another film noir character says it, and it's really about the character. So going back to this one, it's understanding the character and understanding his motivations. And I think that's why this film noir and even other film noirs that follow those tropes will fit into this box and fit into this dialogue of still being, still having those tropes and being kind of like eye-rolling and sometimes, but also understanding, because there's a certain mystery of the character that we always come back to and always gravitate towards, I think, is really unique. That's different from the horror genre. So anyways, guys, for all those reasons, that's why I think Maltese Falcon is a classic and why I enjoyed it. This has been a fun week. I'm definitely going to check out more of the noir genre. Make sure you like the video. Comment below. Let me know some of your favorite noir movies or some, movies that you want to see me do in the future. That's always fun. That's the reason I do these movies and do these videos, is to create a great film community. So anyways, guys, I'm Connor Roll, and until next time, stay tuned.